Let me tell you something real, something most people don't want to hear, but everybody needs to understand. Respect is not something you beg for. Respect is something you command. And the moment you stop chasing attention, approval, and validation from anybody, especially from a man, that is the moment everything changes in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with something very simple, but very powerful. If you don't respect yourself, you are going to spend your whole life trying to convince other people to respect you. And that is a losing battle every single time. Because the truth is, the world does not give you respect first. The world responds to what you already believe about yourself. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. It is not just a feeling. It is not just a phrase you repeat. It is a lifestyle. It is a daily decision. It is a standard you live by even when nobody is watching you. And let me tell you something most people don't realize. How you treat yourself teaches other people exactly how to treat you. If you tolerate disrespect in your own life, don't be shocked when disrespect becomes normal in your relationships. If you ignore your own boundaries, don't be surprised when other people walk right over them. Because people are not guessing how far they can go with you. They are learning it from you every single day. Self-respect starts in the quiet moments. It starts when you are alone, when nobody is clapping for you. Nobody is posting about you. Nobody is validating you. Nobody is validating you. It is what you do when nobody is watching that defines your real value. Do you lower your standards just to keep someone around? Do you ignore your intuition because you are afraid of losing a person? Do you settle for less just so you don't have to start over? Because let me tell you something real. Starting over is painful, but staying where you are not respected is even more painful. And a woman or a man who truly respects themselves understands this. Peace is more valuable than attention, and dignity is more valuable than attention. Self-respect is knowing that you don't have to chase anyone who is unsure about you. You don't have to force yourself into someone's life. You don't have to beg for consistency, clarity, or commitment. Because when you respect yourself, you understand something very powerful. You are not an option. You are a priority in your own life first. And when you become that kind of person, something shifts in your energy. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop over-apologizing for existing. You stop shrinking your voice to make others comfortable. You start standing tall in who you are, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Now listen carefully. Self-respect is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is not thinking you are better than others. No. Self-respect is simply knowing your worth and refusing to negotiate it. It is knowing that your time is valuable, your emotions are valuable, your body is valuable, your peace is valuable, and your presence is not something that should be taken lightly. A person with self-respect does not chase confusion. They don't stay in situations where they are constantly guessing where they stand. They don't accept mixed signals and call it love. They don't accept inconsistency and call it effort. No. They understand that anything that constantly drains their peace is not worth their presence. And let me break this down even further. When you respect yourself, you don't need revenge. You don't need arguments. You don't need to prove a point to everyone who misunderstands you. You simply remove yourself from environments that don't match your value. That is power. That is maturity. That is growth. Because the strongest statement you can ever make is not what you say. It is what you walk away from. And the person who respects themselves walks away from anything that tries to make them feel small, confused, or unworthy. Now I want you to understand something very important. Self-respect is built through repetition. It is built every time you say no when you really want to say yes, but you know it is not right for you. It is built every time you choose peace over drama. It is built every time you refuse to chase someone who is not meeting you halfway. And yes, it is not always easy, because sometimes your emotions will want to pull you back into situations that your wisdom already told you to leave. Sometimes your heart will want to stay where your dignity is being tested, but self-respect means your decisions are not ruled by temporary emotions. They are ruled by long-term value. You have to ask yourself every single time, does this situation respect my time? Does this relationship respect my peace? Does this environment respect my growth? And if the answer is no, then you already know what you have to do, because a person with self-respect understands that not everything deserves access to them. Not every conversation deserves a response. Not every situation deserves a reaction. Not every person deserves a second chance to disrespect them. And here's the truth that will change your life if you really understand it. People will only rise to the level of respect you demand for yourself. If you demand nothing, you will receive anything. If you demand clarity, you will start attracting clarity. If you demand respect, you will start attracting respect. But it starts with you first. Self-respect is the silent language that tells the world, I know who I am, and I will not abandon myself to be accepted by you. And when you live like that, you stop chasing approval and you start attracting alignment. Because the right people, the right opportunities, the right relationships, they don't require you to lose yourself. They don't require you to lower your standards. They don't require you to beg. They meet you where you already stand. So if you take anything from this, take this truth with you. The way you respect yourself sets the tone for every single relationship in your life. And once you truly understand your worth, you will never again beg someone to see it. You will simply live it and let the world adjust accordingly. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something that changes everything in your life. The moment you truly understand it, boundaries. Because if self-respect is the foundation, then boundaries are the walls that protect it. And without boundaries, even the strongest self-worth will eventually be tested, weakened, and disrespected. Now listen to me carefully. A boundary is not something you say. A boundary is something you enforce. Anybody can say, I don't tolerate disrespect. Anybody can say, I don't accept lies. Anybody can say, I won't deal with confusion. But the real question is, what do you do when it actually happens? Because let me tell you something, most people learn the hard way. People don't respect what you say. They respect what you allow. And every time you allow something you said you wouldn't allow, you are not just breaking your own word, you are lowering your own value in that person's eyes. Boundaries are not about controlling other people. Boundaries are about controlling access to you. And when you understand that, your entire life changes. You stop trying to fix people. You stop trying to convince people. You stop trying to argue people into respecting you. You simply decide who gets access to your time, your energy, your emotions, and your presence. Because here's the truth. Everybody does not deserve full access to you. Not everybody deserves unlimited conversations with you. Not everybody deserves constant explanations from you. Mute. Not everybody. Not everybody deserves repeated chances to hurt you. Boundaries are what separate emotional maturity from emotional chaos. And let me be real with you. The absence of boundaries is the reason many people feel exhausted in relationships. They're overgiving, over-explaining, overloading, and underprotecting themselves. They think love means access without limits, but real love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Now I want you to understand this deeply. When you have no boundaries, you become predictable. And when you become predictable, you become easy to take for granted. Because people start to assume you will always be there. They assume you will always forgive. They assume you will always respond. They assume you will always stay, no matter how they behave. And that is where respect starts to disappear. But the moment you establish boundaries, something powerful happens. You become clear. You become firm. You become emotionally stable in your decisions. You stop reacting from emotion and start responding from self-worth. And that energy alone changes how people treat you. Because now, people cannot just treat you however they want and still have access to your presence. They start to realize there are consequences for inconsistency. There are consequences for disrespect. There are consequences for playing with your time and emotions. And let me tell you something very important. Boundaries are not about punishment. Boundaries are about protection. You are not trying to hurt people. You are trying to protect your peace. You are protecting your mental health. You are protecting your emotional stability. You are protecting your food, turf from repeated pain. A person with strong boundaries does not beg for loyalty. They require it. They don't chase clarity. They demand it through their actions. If something is unclear, they don't stay in confusion. They step back. If something feels disrespectful, they don't argue about it. They remove themselves. If something repeatedly drains them, they don't keep fixing it. They walk away from it because they understand something very powerful. Access is a privilege, not a right. And let me take it deeper for you. The reason boundaries are so powerful is because they reveal people's true intentions. When you set boundaries, the right people will respect them. They may not always like them, but they will respect them. But the wrong people, they will test them. They will push them. They will ignore them. And in doing so, they reveal exactly who they are. So boundaries don't push the right people away. They expose the wrong ones. Now listen closely. One of the biggest mistakes people make is setting boundaries but not enforcing them. And that is worse than having no boundaries at all. Because when you say, don't do this, and they do it, and you stay anyway, you are not just losing respect. You are training people to ignore your words completely. At that point, your voice loses power. Your words lose weight. Your standards become optional. And once you reach that stage, it becomes very hard to rebuild respect in that relationship. That is why consistency is everything. Boundaries must be consistent, not emotional, not occasional, not selective. Consistent, because consistent, because consistent, because consistent, because consistent, because consistency. And I want you to understand this deeply. Healthy boundaries do not make you difficult. They make you valuable. They make you valuable. People don't lose respect for someone who has standards. They lose interest in people they can easily walk over. Now here's where real growth happens. When you start setting boundaries, some people will resist them. Some will get upset. Some will try to guilt you. Some will say you have changed. And I want you to understand something very clearly. Yes, you have changed. You stopped tolerating what used to hurt you. And that is not a loss. That is evolution. Because a person with boundaries is no longer living to please everyone. They are living to protect their peace. They are no longer available to everyone on demand. They are selective. They are intentional. They are aware that their energy is limited and precious. And when you live like that, something shifts in how people see you. You stop being an option and you start becoming a standard. People begin to think twice before disrespecting you. They begin to value your presence more because they know it is not guaranteed. So understand this clearly. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are filters that protect your peace and preserve your worth. And when you master them, you don't just gain respect from others, you gain respect from yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something that most people misunderstand completely when it comes to respect. Completely when it comes to respect. They think respect comes from being loud, being emotional, reacting fast, proving a point, or always having the last word. But the truth is very different. Real respect is not built in noise. Real respect is built in control, emotional control, self-control, inner stability. Because the moment you learn how to master your emotions, you stop being predictable. And the moment you stop being predictable, people start taking you seriously. Now listen to me carefully. Emotional control does not mean you don't feel anything. It does not mean you are cold. It does not mean you are heartless. No, it means you feel everything, but you don't let everything control you. That is the difference between maturity and immaturity. That is the difference between power and weakness. And that is the difference between power and weakness. And that is the difference between being respected and being played with, because let's be honest, when a person reacts to everything, argues over everything, gets triggered by everything, and emotionally explodes over every situation, people around them stop respecting their presence, not because they don't care, but because they don't feel stability. And instability makes people uncomfortable. Nobody wants to trust chaos. Nobody wants to follow confusion. Nobody wants to build anything solid with someone who cannot even control their own emotional reactions. But when you meet someone who is calm even in pressure, who does not rush to respond, who does not get pulled into every argument, who does not lose their dignity in emotional moments, that person automatically stands out, because calmness is rare, control is rare, emotional discipline is rare, and anything rare is valuable. Let me break it down for you in real terms. When someone disrespects you and you immediately react with anger, shouting, insults, or emotional breakdowns, what happens? You lose your position. You lose your power. You move from being respected to being reactive. But when someone disrespects you and you pause, you think, you respond with calm clarity or even silence. Something shifts in that moment. You are no longer reacting from emotion. You are responding from strength. And that shift is what makes people rethink how they treat you. Because now they realize something very important. You are not easy to destabilize. You are not easy to manipulate. You are not easy to push into chaos. And people think twice before trying to disturb someone who is not easily disturbed. Now let's talk about confidence, because emotional control and confidence go hand in hand. Confidence is not about talking big. It is not about showing off. It is not about proving you are better than anyone else. Confidence is quiet. Confidence is steady. Confidence is the way you carry yourself when nobody is clapping for you. A confident person does not need constant validation. They don't need approval from every room they enter. They don't need to be liked by everybody. They are comfortable with who they are, even if others don't fully understand them. And that kind of energy changes everything, because when you are not seeking approval, You are no longer easy to control. When you are not desperate for attention, you are no longer easy to manipulate. When you are not emotionally dependent on other people's reactions, you become free. And freedom is powerful. Let me tell you something real. People respect confidence because confidence signals self-trust. And if you trust yourself, others will begin to trust you too. But if you don't trust yourself, if you constantly doubt yourself, if you constantly seek reassurance, people will sense that instability and they will not fully respect your decisions. Now, here's the deeper truth. Emotional control builds confidence because every time you choose not to react impulsively, every time you choose not to argue unnecessarily, every time you choose not to chase validation, you are training your mind to stay strong. And over time, that discipline becomes your identity. And once it becomes your identity, people cannot shake you easily. Let me take you deeper into something else. Emotional control also protects your dignity because the fastest way to lose respect is to lose control of your emotions in front of the wrong people. When you beg in emotion, when you chase in desperation, when you argue in frustration, when you try to force someone to understand your value, you are not increasing your respect, you are decreasing it. But when you remain composed, even when you are hurt, even when you are misunderstood, that is where respect grows. Because now people see strength instead of weakness. Because now people see strength instead of weakness. They see discipline instead of chaos. They see a person who is not easily broken. And let me be very clear about this. Emotional control does not mean you accept disrespect. It means you respond to disrespect in a way that protects your dignity. Sometimes that response is silence. Sometimes that response is distance. Sometimes that response is walking away. But it is never emotional destruction of yourself, because you have to understand something very important. Every emotional reaction either builds your image or breaks your image. There is no neutral reaction. There is no neutral reaction. Every time you respond, you are shaping how people perceive your value. Now let's talk about why this makes a man or anyone respect you more. It is simple. People respect what they cannot control. And when you are emotionally controlled, you are no longer easy to predict, no longer easy to manipulate, no longer easy to pull into drama. You become stable. You become grounded. You become someone who carries emotional authority. And emotional authority is powerful because it changes the entire dynamic of relationships. Instead of reacting to everything, you respond with intention. Instead of chasing every explanation, you observe. Instead of proving yourself constantly, you allow your actions to speak. And that quiet confidence makes people adjust their behavior around you because now they understand something clearly. You are not someone who loses yourself over temporary situations. And that is where respect reaches another level. Not when you shout the loudest, not when you react the fastest, not when you argue the hardest, but when you remain the most composed in situations where others lose control. That is weight. It separates emotional weakness from emotional mastery. And when you master that, you don't just gain respect from others, you gain unshakable respect from yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something that is often misunderstood, but it is one of the most powerful forces in how people value you, how people treat you, and how people decide your place in their lives. And that is your actions, not your words, not your promises, not your intentions, your actions. Because at the end of the day, people don't respect what you say. You respect what you consistently show. Now listen carefully. You could tell someone all day long that you are loyal, but if your actions show inconsistency, your words lose value. You can tell someone you are strong, but if your actions show weakness in critical moments, your words lose weight. You can tell someone you deserve respect, but if your actions allow disrespect, then you are teaching people the opposite of what you are saying. Because life is simple in this way. Actions always speak louder than words, always. And people may listen to your words, but they believe your behavior. So let's go deeper into this truth. If you want respect, you don't demand it through speech. You earn it through consistency. And consistency is built through repeated actions that align with your standards, not just your emotions. Because anyone can act right for one day. Anyone can be strong for one moment. But real respect is built when your actions remain the same, even when your emotions change. Now let's talk about something real. A man or anyone does not develop deep respect for someone who is unpredictable in behavior, because unpredictability creates confusion, and confusion destroys trust. But when your actions are stable, when your behavior is consistent, when people know what to expect from you based on how you carry yourself, that is when respect grows naturally. Let me give you a simple truth. If you accept disrespect once, your actions are saying it is acceptable. If you accept it twice, your actions are confirming it. And if you accept it repeatedly, your actions are teaching people that your boundaries are flexible. And once your boundaries become flexible, your respect becomes negotiable. That is why actions matter more than anything else. Because your actions are the proof of your self-worth, not your speeches, not your explanations, not your explanations, not your explainings, not your explains. Now listen closely. Respect increases when your actions show discipline. Discipline in how you respond. Discipline in what you tolerate. Discipline in how you carry yourself in relationships, in friendships, in conversations, and even in silence. Because disciplined actions show maturity, and maturity naturally commands respect. When you act from discipline instead of impulse, people start to see you differently. They see someone who is not easily shaken. They see someone who does not act out of desperation. They see someone who is intentional with their behavior. And intentional behavior is powerful because it shows control over your own life. Let me break it down further. If someone treats you well only when they feel like it, but your actions still keep giving them unlimited access, then your actions are showing them there are no consequences. And where there are no consequences, respect cannot survive, because respect needs structure. Respect needs limits. Respect needs clarity in action. And that is why boundaries are not just spoken, they are demonstrated. When you say, I don't tolerate disrespect, your action must match that statement. When disrespect happens, your action must be distant silence, correction, or removal, not continued acceptance. Because without action, your boundaries are just words floating in the air. Now let's go deeper into something very important. Your actions also define your emotional value. If you act desperate, people will see desperation. If you act confident, people will see confidence. If you act insecure, people will feel that insecure. If you act calm and grounded, people will feel stability in your presence. because human beings respond more to what they observe than what they hear. That is just reality. So your actions are constantly communicating your identity to the world. And here is where most people lose respect without realizing it. They say they want to be valued, but their actions show over availability. They say they want to be respected, but their actions show over explaining. They say they want to be prioritized, but their actions show acceptance of being last. And when your actions contradict your desires, people follow your actions, not your desires. So if you want to change how people treat you, you don't start with talking differently. You start with acting differently. You start by changing your responses. You start by changing your reactions. You start by changing what you tolerate. Because once your actions change, people have no choice but to adjust. Let me tell you something powerful. Actions also build reputation, not just with one person, but with everyone around you. Because people talk, people observe, people notice patterns, and your consistent actions become your reputation in every room you are not in. If your actions show respect for yourself, people will say you are a person of value. If your actions show emotional stability, people will say you are mature. If your actions show boundaries, people will say you are not someone to be played with. But if your actions show confusion, inconsistency, and emotional dependence, people will label you accordingly too. So understand this clearly. Your reputation is not built by what you say about yourself. It is built by what your actions repeatedly show about you. Now let's go even deeper. Actions are also what separate intention from reality. Many people have good intentions. They say the right things. They plan the right things. They promise the right things. They promise the right things. But intentions without actions mean nothing. And people respect results, not intentions. So when someone sees that your actions match your words consistently, trust is built. And where trust exists, respect naturally follows. But where there is a gap between words and actions, respect starts to disappear slowly, even if it is not said out loud. And here's the final truth you must understand. Every time you act in alignment with your self-worth, you reinforce your value. Every time you act against your self-worth, you weaken it. So your life is basically shaped by the sum of your actions over time. And that is why actions are not just important. They are everything. Because in the end, people will forget what you said. They will forget what you promised. But they will never forget how you consistently showed up in their lives. And that is what determines respect at the highest level.